I lean towards Ohio State at +3.5 here. A couple storylines to talk about coming into this game. The first is Ryan Day's future with the Buckeyes. A lot of rumors coming around this week that he is going to take the job at Texas A&M. He hasn't come out and said that he's not taking that job or taking that job, but that's just something interesting to note, something to look at, what's going on in their locker room as well. And then the other storyline here is, can Ryan Day beat Michigan, right? He's lost 2 straight here. He's 1-2 against the Wolverines last year, gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Terrible loss there, but that game was a lot closer than the scoreboard said. So that should be interesting coming into this one as well. I think if Ryan Day is going to get the best of this Michigan team, it's going to be this year. Neither team's really been tested outside of a game against Penn State. I'm not saying Penn State's that good of a football team offensively. They just can't compete. But Michigan did show a lot of flaws last week against Maryland, and I know they could have been overlooking that Maryland team to get to this game, but there's a lot to be concerned about for Michigan bettors looking at that game. There's plenty of areas where Ohio State can capitalize based on what we saw in that Maryland game. When you look at what the Terrapins did to them last week, they averaged 8 yards per completion. They were actually pretty explosive down the field. The Buckeyes can do the exact same thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. Michigan beat Ohio State last year because of explosive plays. I think the script could be flipped this year, and we see a lot of explosive plays from the Buckeyes, especially behind Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a great game against Michigan last season, caught 7 passes for 120 yards. I think he can do that same thing again in this one and probably be even better. Relying on Blake Corum isn't really the answer for Michigan in this spot because Ohio State's very good against the run. J.J. McCarthy has struggled the past few weeks as well, so it's another reason to lean towards Ohio State here. So if the Buckeyes are going to get the best of Michigan, I think it's this season. Whether Ryan Day is leaving or not, he's going to go out with a statement here and find a way to win this game. I'm going to take the 3.5 because I have the hook there for the protection, but still I would sprinkle the money line as well. Yeah, I don't really want anything to do with a side or a total here, but I do like Bucky Irving to go over 87.5 rushing yards. Oregon State has an excellent defense. It's one of the reasons they've been so successful this season and one of the best teams in the Pac-12. And they're playing spoiler in this spot against Oregon. That's all they're doing in this one. But I do like Oregon to obviously win this game. I'm not leaning towards Bo Nix, though, to throw for over 300 yards. I think he can do that. But the better bet is leaning on Bucky Irving to go over 87.5. If the Ducks win, it's going to be because of a heavy dose of running from Irving. He's been sensational this season. Oregon State allows just 224 passing yards per game, but they've given up a lot of chunk plays on the ground. Those explosive plays can be created by Irving in this one. He's got one of the best numbers in the country. He's exceeded 87.5 yard total in 3 of his past 5 games with 2 100-plus yard performances. If Oregon can get a lead in this game, which I do expect them to, Irving's going to be a huge benefactor and get over this total because of how explosive he is on the ground. This is one of my favorite plays of the entire weekend. TCU quarterback Josh Hoover, the freshman, over 274.5 passing yards. Hoover's been really good since he's taken over the starting job. TCU's playing for a lot in this game. They don't have a great record at 5-6, but they're fighting to make that bowl game. And I'm not saying the Oklahoma Sooners are the best team in the world here. I think TCU can make a little noise. We look at Hoover as a freshman quarterback, been posting some big numbers over the past few weeks, really starting to find his groove. He's thrown for 300-plus passing yards in the past 3 games. And that includes against number 7 Texas. So it's not like he's doing it against a bunch of scrubs here. 11 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. As a bettor, I'm okay seeing these picks when it comes to throwing the ball because it shows that they are trying to get the ball downfield, get the ball in space, and create big plays in the passing game. And he's been overall very efficient. Completed 83% of his passes last week against Baylor, so has momentum coming into this game. And Baylor's passing defense is very similar to Oklahoma. They're each giving up about 230 passing yards per game, and Hoover's line on Saturday is set 274.5. He's hit this in 4 of 6 starts this season as a freshman. It seems a little high if you just look at it at the surface level, but the bottom line is he's crushing this number, and he's going into passing defense where he can hit this number. So going to lean over on that 274.5 line. I'm shocked Florida's getting 6.5 points at home in this spot. I really like the Gators here. Both teams aren't going to have their starting quarterbacks. We know what happened to Jordan Travis last week. It's a shame against North Alabama, but that's the way football goes. The Seminoles are going to have to move on here. I just think this is a very tough spot for them going into the Swamp. The Swamp is a very tough environment. We saw Tennessee come in there earlier this season and just not be able to do anything, and that's a good Tennessee football team. Backup Tate Rodemaker did very good for Florida State last week when he came into the game, 13-23 for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. but Florida is a much bigger challenge than in 3-8 FCS school when you're playing them at home. Without Graham Mertz, I'm still okay with this Florida team because they have such a good run game, and I think they're going to lean on it a lot in this spot with Trevor Etienne. Travis Etienne's brother obviously got some good genes there. 121 carries this season for 710 yards with 8 touchdowns. Averaged 6 yards per carry this season. Outstanding for a sophomore in the SEC. We need to take that into consideration. He's been that good. This offensive line has been able to pound when they need to, and they're going to need to do it against Florida State. But I think with the home crowd advantage and the fact that I do like Florida to run the football effectively in this game, I think they can cover that 6.5. And don't be shocked if we get the ESPN alert at the bottom of the screen saying, hey, this game's going into it's a tight game alert, because Florida can play with Florida State, especially without Jordan Travis. This is going to be an interesting spot to find out what this Seminoles team is all about, and I just don't think they're going to answer the call in the Swamp.